Cenk, let me bring you in here. It's a really interesting debate for the soul of the Democrat Party. You've been immersed in this for quite a while now, and I think you've seen the way the wind was blowing way before a lot of people. But when you see someone like Stephen A. Smith, what do you think? I mean, I just think he's clearly flirting with this. He's getting more popular. I think people really like him. He's articulate. He's intelligent. He's strong. I see him standing up to LeBron James and stuff when they have spats or whatever. He's clearly got a fearless streak in him. Why not Stephen A. Smith?
Yeah. So I want to have a clarifying conversation here, and I want to offer you a better celebrity than Stephen A. Smith.
All right, guys. So in today's episode on the Piers Morgan Uncensored show, he has Cenk Uygur in there, and Cenk Uygur absolutely destroys Piers Morgan for his idiotic take in a heated debate. Piers Morgan really said that Stephen A. Smith would make a great U.S. president, and Cenk Uygur did not let that slide. He calls out the absurdity and the elevating media personalities of the highest office just because they're loud, confident, or entertaining on TV. Piers tries to defend it, of course, but Cenk brings the receipts, reminding everybody that charisma isn't a substitute for policy chops or leadership experience. So let's dive in and watch how Cenk shuts down Piers Morgan in this heated debate on the Piers Morgan Uncensored.
I want to have a clarifying conversation here, and I want to offer you a better celebrity than Stephen A. Smith. Look, I got no problems with the brother, and I'm not trying to hate, okay? But, I mean, saying the first thing he'd do is economics. What does that mean? What's the policy behind economics? He said he checked with his pastor. I think it's more likely that he checked with his publicist. But it's okay. It's okay. God bless, to each his own, okay? So I'll get to the celebrity in a second. But guys, there's three wings of the Democratic Party. It's driving me crazy that you all are talking about it in a way that makes no sense, and you lump in people that don't belong together. I get why. But so the three wings are what you guys keep talking about: radical left, woke left, whatever you want to call it, right? But then you've got the establishment, and that's the part that you guys never talk about. So that's the Kamala Harris, Joe Biden. They're not woke. That's not their problem. Their problem is that they were elitist, served the donor class, or establishment figures. Hillary Clinton, same exact thing. Hillary wasn't woke at all. She was just establishment 101. Those are two different problems. Then there's a third wing that I'm in, which is economic populism, that Ro Khanna's in, Nina Turner's in. So Nina Turner brings in basically the black wing of the populist movement and talking about the freedom budget that the civil rights movement talked about. Why? It's an economic issue. It's about populism. It's about raising wages. So what do we focus on? How can the Democratic Party win? That's the most important thing. So higher wages, lower drug prices, lower housing prices, paid family leave, anti-war, money out of politics. These are all Democratic policies that are all intensely popular, over 2/3 for each one of those things. So, you know, we talk about, oh, Stephen A. Smith gets a lot of airtime. He does, but why? You know, you guys mentioned Wes Moore. Wes Moore's an incredibly charismatic guy. I'm not sure that's the candidate that I want, but I'd be open to it. But he just doesn't get enough airtime, right? Same thing for Ro Khanna, wonderfully articulate. Geraldo's complimented him in the past, and he's a really smart guy. But not just that. Then we've got some real populists like Richard Ojeda running in North Carolina 9. And he served 24 years in the Army, ain't nothing to do with vote.
So Cenk starts to dismantle Piers Morgan's whole take about Stephen A. Smith becoming president. He starts to dismantle him on his own show, on the Piers Morgan Uncensored show. Cenk basically says, okay, the Stephen A. is focused on the economics, but what does that mean? You know, Stephen A. has no plan, no policies, just a vague vibe and media hype. Then he says, like with a joking around, saying, you know, Stephen A. checked with his pastor. Like, let's be real, he probably checked with his publicist. Like, it's funny, but it's true. So on the Piers Morgan Uncensored, Cenk lays it out better than anybody else can. There's three wings of the Democratic Party. You got the woke crowd, the establishment, the elites like Biden and Kamala, and then the economic populists, the real ones fighting for working people. So basically, he's saying that he's fighting for the working people on Piers Morgan's show. And then Cenk points out some more people that are better qualified But since they don't have that celebrity status, they don't get the looks or the airtime. He mentioned people like Nina Turner, Ro Akana, and they're not on TV every night, but they have real ideas to get higher wages, lower housing costs, anti-war, money out of the politics. That's the winning formula that Cenk is talking about. But let's get back to this debate on how Pierce gets this mantle.
It's about delivering for the average American. But Piers, if we want to be obsessed with celebrities, why not Jon Stewart? Jon Stewart's the only celebrity who's actually gotten a bill passed when he wasn't even in Congress. It was spectacular. It was amazing. If I could take Stephen A. Smith's hype and his chutzpah and the way that he gets out there and runs to the spotlight and put it on Jon Stewart, we'd have a winning combination.
But you know what I would say to that? And it's interesting. It's an interesting. I love Jon Stewart. But I think if you walked around with Jon Stewart and Stephen A. Smith in LA or New York, you're right. Okay. The smart crowd would all rush up to Jon Stewart. You're the Messiah. If you took them both down to Florida, to Texas, to Alabama, right, to middle America, if you took the pair of them down there, it would be the other way around. You would see the people on the streets resonating far more with Stephen A. Smith than they ever would with Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart, in a way, is a kind of elitist himself. I mean, he's brilliant, but he's part of the elite comedic establishment. He is. Come on, he's a multimillionaire comedian.
Then why isn't Stephen A. Smith elitist? No, you can't have cold waste here. You can't say that Jon Stewart's elite because he's a celebrity, but Stephen A. Smith isn't elite even though he's a celebrity. That doesn't make any sense.
Because he commentates on a sport which is about as far from elitist in terms of where most of the players come from that you could imagine. Right, because they're mostly working.
There isn't one thing Jon Stewart has done that's elitist. There isn't one thing.
No, by definition, if you're
all these wonderful people,
I would say if you're part of the New York, elite comedic TV set, you are by definition part of the media establishment. Let's put it like that.
How is Stephen A. Smith not part of the TV set? I mean, the man is glued to the TV. And why are we having a conversation between Stephen A. Smith and Jon Stewart?
Because I think they're very different. You know what? Let's ask the biggest TV. Let me ask the biggest TV star. Let me ask the biggest TV star of the four of us, of five of us. And that is, sorry, Cornell, it's not you.
Ellen?
I'm going to ask Geraldo, who is by far the biggest TV star of the five of us. Geraldo, Jon Stewart v. Stephen A. Smith. Your thoughts?
I like Jon Stewart a lot. I think he's brilliant in his comedy, his sarcasm, and I think that's his greatest strength. Is his strong suit. But I don't think sarcasm sells the way populism does. Stephen A. Smith has indicated and gives off the vibe. Sometimes it's indescribable, or
it's from the Bronx.
A mystery where it comes from.
It's a
charisma that Trump has. Trump is Trump is the biggest movie star on earth right now.
Yeah,
he's charismatic. He's magnetic. He's someone who I think that he's survived these 100 days, sometimes catastrophes of his own making, but he has emerged. He had the great meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister today. I think that
Piers Morgan really out here comparing Stephen A. Smith to Jon Stewart. That's crazy. And Cenk Uygur was not letting that slide. First of all, let's be honest. Jon Stewart is not just a celebrity. He literally got legislation passed for the 9/11 first responders. And he's not even a congressman. He did and took actions and got results. Stephen A. hasn't done none of that, And Cenk calls it like he sees it. It's an empty celebrity hype. And let's be real. Stephen A. Smith is an elite. He's on TV every single day. He makes millions. The man's entire job is shouting out opinions on sports from a studio in Manhattan. Piers Morgan tries to spin it around and say he's not part of the elite because he talks about athletes from working class backgrounds and getting it and standing up to people, to LeBron James and all that. Let's think this with logic. Jon Stewart might come from TV comedy, sure, but he used that platform to fight for real people. He's never been about the spotlight. He's been more about getting, stuff done. And then they compare Stephen A as a populism to Donald Trump's charisma. Come on. That's not leadership. It's just showsmanship. And at the end of the day, Cenk put it simple. If we're choosing a president based on who's more famous in like Florida, Alabama, New Jersey, California, then we already lost. Because this shouldn't be who's more famous. This is the president of the United States. It's who's going to deliver, not who's more famous.
So I want to add quickly, parenthetically, I also don't want you to exclude Sean Hannity. I think it would be a wonderful candidate for president. And either of the Cuomo brothers, Andrew, the former governor who's now running and is the probable next mayor of New York, and also Chris Cuomo, who I submit was the first to recognize in Stephen A. Smith this possibility. However unrealistic it may be, that Stephen A. Smith might be a viable candidate. But I think the main point that we are all talking about and avoiding is that the Democrats have to shake off what they have done up until now. They have failed utterly. They failed when they did not bounce Joe Biden from the candidacy long before, where it was recognized he was borderline dementia. And I love the guy, and he's only 8 months older than I am. I feel regret that he did not have the grace and the pragmatism to withdraw much earlier. And so the Democrats could have had a primary. I don't think Kamala Harris would have won that primary, even if it was a quick one on a short schedule, if you remember how she bombed the last time she tried. And I think that she's also going to be an awful candidate for governor of California, and the Republicans will have an opportunity there because they see that, for one thing that has not been mentioned, immigration. The Democrats have been so wishy-washy on immigration. They all they do is recite the mantra and the Statue of Liberty, and don't recognize how offensive immigration is. The border has to be sealed, and then you need compassion, you need attention, but immigration is an issue that is that's the elephant in the room. Has not been mentioned, but I wonder what Stephen A. Smith would say about immigration. He has 140 different ethnicities.
Well, you know what? He was quite strong about it, and he cited something I've said a lot. He quoted me, which is that actually the biggest deporter in modern presidential times was Barack Obama, who deported over 3 million people, way more than Trump has done. But the left didn't even know. When I asked my liberal friends,
Obama didn't gratuitously terrify people. And
Obama did
Trump has done it so unnecessarily.
Well, as always, it can be the way Trump goes about it more than what he's actually doing. I mean, Harry, look, there's a lot of names being thrown around here. You represent the young wing of the Democrat Party. Who would you like to see?
If the Democrats want to win, they need leaders with a spine and who have a plan, not a Sports Center mic and a catchphrase. They start mentioning Sheen Hannity and the Cuomo brothers for presidents. It's like, why is Piers Morgan on his show on the Piers Morgan Uncensored even bringing these stuff up? Like, I get it's for the ratings, but it's kind of like misleading. Stephen A. Smith doesn't really have a chance at becoming a president. And Cenk Uygur basically says it like earlier. He says Jon Stewart actually got legislation passed. Like, we should be looking at people who are actually doing something and doing something for the change, something for the American people, not just ESPN personality analysts. As much as I like Stephen A., I think he's a great commentator, and I think he's probably the best sports commentator there is. But I don't think he should be president just because he's more popular than somebody else. It's like Cenk points out, like, he doesn't just disagree, but he also dismantles the whole argument on the Piers Morgan Uncensored show with Piers Morgan, saying that name recognition isn't a policy, or TV ratings, they shouldn't be a qualification to run the free world.